In 2005, a quiet American town was shaken by a terrible event. A young girl disappeared from her own home without a trace, leaving behind her belongings, phone and car. Over time, the investigation of this case began to resemble a typical detective series with only one difference: all this happened in real life. The small town was plunged into an atmosphere of fear and mistrust, because any of the residents could have been involved in the girl's disappearance. Tara Grinstead was born in 1974 in Hawkinsville, USA. During her school years, she actively participated in beauty contests, winning prizes. From an early age, she set herself the goal of getting a quality education, so she saved the money she earned from competitions to pay for her education. After college, Tara received her master's degree in education and got the job she had long dreamed of. She became a high school history teacher in Osceola, Georgia. This tiny town was a typical low-rise development. Its population did not exceed 4,000 people, most of whom knew each other very well. Life there proceeded calmly, and none of the local residents could think that some serious crime could happen in the city. Tara Grinstead worked at a local school for several years, during which time she developed excellent relationships with both staff and students. She was a kind and sociable person who could always support and help. In October 2005, Tara helped students preparing to participate in a local competition. Considering the fact that their teacher had repeatedly won prizes at similar events, the girls were delighted with her support. On Saturday, October 22, Tara helped students with the final touches for the competition, then went on a picnic with her school friends and didn't return home until 11 p.m., parking her car outside under the shelter. Since then, Tara has stopped communicating. The most worried person was her mother, who kept answering the phone or calling back, but this time she never received an answer. On Monday, October 24, anxiety reached its peak. Tara did not show up for work, which was extremely unusual for her. The girl took her work seriously and would definitely have warned her boss that she needed time off. Concerned people called the police. At 10 a.m. that day, a police officer went to her address. He believed that the woman's phone was simply dead, and she herself was either sick or simply overslept. Arriving at her house, he found Tara's car in its usual place. Its doors were not locked, but this was not surprising in such a small town, where residents were absolutely not worried that their cars could be stolen. He noticed an envelope containing cash on the dashboard. This was already strange. How could such a responsible person as Tara leave money in a visible place? The policeman knocked on the door, but no one opened it. Then he decided to inspect the house. At first glance, everything was completely ordinary. There were no signs of a struggle or a break-in. But in Tara's bedroom, detectives found a real mess, completely unusual for her. Things were lying on the floor, including clothes. Her cell phone was lying on the nightstand charging. It looked as if Tara had left the house for a while. But she was nowhere to be found. On the ground near the house, police found the first piece of evidence that led them to suspect a possible crime. There was a latex glove lying around that someone might have used to hide fingerprints. Detectives did not consider the possibility that the glove could have belonged to Tara herself at home. Almost no one has used Tammy since then. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, an analog of the FBI, only at the level of one state, joined the case. The main version of the investigation was abduction. There was very little evidence. In addition to the glove, detectives identified only two questionable points. Tara's broken chain was lying on the floor in the bedroom, and her alarm clock was not in its usual place. This didn't help the detectives at all. This was a truly terrible Monday for the small town. Tara's house was cordoned off and a meeting was held at the school. Tara's colleagues and students tried their best to help in the search, forming a group of volunteers. They printed a stack of leaflets with a photograph of the woman and information about her disappearance, and within the next few hours these pieces of paper were posted all over the city. That same day, police interviewed Tara's neighbors and examined the area in which she lived. The search involved sniffer dogs, which were brought in the hope of picking up the trail of the missing woman. Investigators still had hope that Tara had simply gone somewhere on foot and the dogs would easily find her. At the same time, the latex glove was given to experts whose goal was to collect the maximum amount of data. They were able to take a DNA sample, but could not find any matches in the FBI database. All that was known was that the sample belonged to a man. Alas, all this did not bring any results. Tara seemed to have disappeared from her own home. Then investigators began to delve into Tara's personal life and past. It often happens that when a woman disappears, someone from her close circle is to blame. After examining the men with whom Tara was in relationships, detectives could not identify a single suspect. She dated Marcus Harp, a former police officer and military man, for the longest time. The couple broke up on Tara's initiative about a year before her disappearance. The reason was that the woman wanted to start a family, but Marcus was not ready for this. After breaking up, they maintained friendly relations, called each other and corresponded. Later, detectives revealed one interesting detail. Marcus came to Allah 3 weeks before Tara's disappearance, but he did not tell her about it. Having learned about Marcus's arrival from friends, the woman was very upset. She called him repeatedly, trying to find out why he did not inform her about his arrival. Soon Tara's condition developed into real hysteria. Her family was very worried and even asked if Tara was going to do something reckless. However, the girl soon came to her senses, and the police did not consider Marcus as a suspect. The couple had been together for a long time, but their relationship ended, and detectives could not find a motive for the crime. Soon an interesting turn awaited them. The police learned that Tara was being threatened by her former student. On March 30, 2005, 7 months before the girl disappeared, he arrived at her house and behaved extremely aggressively. When Tara refused to let him in, the guy started banging on the door, and the neighbors had to call the police. It turned out that the young man had been in love with the teacher since school. According to her friends, the former student was emotionally unstable, behaved strangely and even frighteningly. For some time, Tara tried to help him understand his problems, but his mental state only worsened. After the incident, when the young man tried to break into her house, the woman wrote a statement against him. She was seriously afraid that he might harm her. After Tara went missing, the police called this young man. He worked in a neighboring town. In an alibi, the guy provided detectives with an alibi for the night of his former teacher's disappearance. It was not possible to establish his involvement in the case. A business card of a certain policeman was also found in the woman's house. It turned out that Tara had been dating him for some time, but at the time of her disappearance he was already living in another city. The police officer also provided an alibi for the night of the disappearance. This is essentially the end of the list of possible suspects. There are no leads. The police decide to organize a search for the girl 2 weeks after the disappearance. Such a belated decision seemed strange, because from the first minutes it was clear, Tara left the house not of her own free will. Hundreds of volunteers were involved in the search and combed the surrounding area. Volunteers walked through the forests, explored ditches and rivers, but they could not find a single trace of Tara. During the search, a message was received that a house and car had burned down not far from Tara's home. Local residents almost unanimously agreed that this incident was somehow connected with the woman's disappearance. Perhaps the perpetrator was trying to cover his tracks, or people were so shocked and scared that every event seemed suspicious to them. Be that as it may, the search yielded no results, and the police were faced with the grim reality that they simply had no leads left. The next few years did not bring the police one step closer to solving this mystery. It was only in 2009 that an event occurred that again drew attention to the disappearance of Tara Grinstead. A certain user created a YouTube channel and published a creepy video. A man sat in the frame, his face was blurred and his voice was changed. In the video, he stated that he was involved in the disappearance of 6 girls, calling them by name. Among them was Tara Grinstead. The unknown person added that he had hidden the bodies securely, and in new videos he would give clues about the burial place. The police immediately checked the video and found out that all 6 names actually belonged to the missing women. The FBI was able to quickly track down the author of this video. He turned out to be 27-year-old Andrew Haley. After his arrest, he said that he just decided to joke. The police were unable to establish a connection with the missing girls, but he still could not avoid trial. For providing false testimony and falsifying evidence, the man was sentenced to 2 years of forced labor and a probationary period of 13 years. The fleeting hope of solving this cold case faded, and the police were again left without a single clue. In December 2010, Tara Grinstead was officially declared dead, as there was simply nothing to work with. Years passed, but the residents of Ayla clearly remembered the disappearance of Tara Grinstead. They remembered, but discussed it less and less. Conversations about Tara remained only behind closed doors. This topic was practically not raised in everyday life. The city has changed forever. Fear and mistrust permeated the local residents for many years to come. It wasn't until 2016 that something happened that made people talk about Tara again. Atlanta-based journalist Payne Lindsay created his own mystery case podcast, and for the first episode, he tackled the case of Tara Grinstead. The man and his colleague arrived in Alu, where they met with private detective Maurice Godwin. Together they began to work on this matter literally from scratch. They did not have access to police documents, so the only available source of information was the city's residents. At first, they only managed to communicate with Tara's friends and relatives. Strangers avoided talking about the missing girl in every possible way, but this did not last long. With her enthusiasm, Lindsay managed to revive interest in this matter, and soon the residents of Ayla began to discuss it again. Lindsay and Maurice followed up on every possible lead as they looked into possible suspects who broke into her home. Along the way, they communicated with everyone who might have at least some useful information. They were so passionate about this matter that several times it seemed to them that the solution was literally one step away from them. One day, Lindsay received a call in which an unknown person suggested looking for remains on the territory of Tara's house. The police did so, and at some point they managed to find the bones. However, experts quickly established that these bones belonged to an animal. Despite the excitement and a new wave of interest in this case, no serious progress occurred. More precisely, they were unable to solve this case directly during the creation of the podcast, but it was this amateur investigation that could become decisive in the long-awaited denouement. The denouement happened completely unexpectedly at the beginning of 2017. A certain Brooke Sharon came to the police, who no longer believed that the truth would ever emerge. Brooke told investigators that her ex-boyfriend Bo Dukes once admitted to her that he helped his friend dispose of Tara Grinstead's body. Having learned about this, the girl repeatedly begged the guy to confess everything, but he remained silent. After listening to Brooke's story, the police did not rush things. Who knows, maybe this woman just wanted fame and attention, especially when a successful podcast got everyone talking about the case again. The detectives decided to act for sure. They asked Brooke to put on a wire and go to Dukes to extract a confession. It worked. The man did not deny his involvement, and the police had grounds for arrest. To their surprise, Dukes immediately began to cooperate with the investigation and laid all his cards on the table. Later, detectives would say that he was simply tired of living with this burden on his soul. Late that evening, he received a call from friend and former classmate Ryan Duke. He asked to borrow a truck and help with some things, before adding, "I broke into Tara Grinstead's house to steal some money, but things didn't go according to plan and I killed her." According to Ryan's story, after a party with friends, he went for a ride in the car. At that moment, he decided to break into someone else's house under the influence of illegal substances. After opening the door with a credit card, he entered the house and began looking for money. Tara noticed him, and a fight ensued between them, from which only Ryan came out alive. When Dukes arrived in a truck at Tara's house, they loaded the woman's body into it and took her to the forest. Then the two of them got rid of the body over several days. Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes were never considered suspects because they simply had no motive. There were no clues that could connect these two to the woman's disappearance. Despite his full confession, Bo Dukes did not testify against himself in court. During the trial, he spoke to Tara's relatives, cried and asked for forgiveness for his action. Dukes spent a long time in the army, was a veteran and had many awards, but the court made its decision 25 years in prison for helping to cover up the crime. As for Ryan Duke, his trial is still dragging on to this day, 4 years after his arrest. This is largely facilitated by lawyers using various loopholes to delay the inevitable. There is no doubt that prison awaits Ryan, but it is unknown when the court will render its final verdict. Now that the truth about this high-profile case has come out, friends and relatives of Tara Grinstead have lifted the burden of uncertainty. Her mother admitted that all these years she secretly hoped for a miracle that her daughter would return to her alive. Alas, reality turned out to be cruel, senseless and devoid of any miracles. At least now the whole world knows exactly what happened in that small town.